We got another blue state question, assault weapons related. We got Charles in Delaware, where he says they recently passed an assault weapons ban. And now the Delaware State Sportsmen Association is suing the state over this ban, and he's wondering if it's going to be successful. And so Delaware is the one state that has passed an assault weapons ban in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
A new one. And so they kind of were the one example against my, couple of recent pieces where I wrote that the assault weapons ban era is over because the polling has moved against it. There's no path for it to pass in Congress anytime soon, and there really hadn't been any states that passed it since the 90s until Delaware did this and sort of threw a wrench into that. And then, of course, the third prong of the reason why I believe the assault weapons ban era is over is the legal side of things. There's much less of a chance that these bills are going to survive scrutiny under Bruen. There just isn't a historical analog really for assault weapons bans. These bans on popular firearms like the AR-15 and AK-47 and a myriad of other guns are usually affected by these assault weapons bans. Of course, as we've talked about a number of times before, assault weapon varies the definition of it from state to state where these things have been imposed. I think Delaware's ban is the more updated version that covers a lot more firearms, sort of like the new assault weapons ban in the House was sort of twice as strict as the old one because it went from you could have 2 features to you can only have 1 feature for, of these banned features on your gun. And so do I think it'll be successful? Probably. I mean, that's, I think we had, another question about the status of the assault weapons bans across the country and the legal challenges to them. And my guess is that you'll have a conclusion in one of those other cases before you get one in this Delaware case. But it'll probably be substantial. Now, it'll probably take another several months to a year for you to start seeing, final opinions in these sorts of cases. I think with California, the Ninth Circuit sent their case back down. The Supreme Court after Bruen accepted 4 gun rights cases. I believe 2 of those were assault weapons bans, right, Jake?
Just 1, I believe. 2 were magazine cases.
All right. Similar case.
Yeah.
Those are kind of magazine limits and assault weapons bans are going to be.
They kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, they're going to be decided fairly similarly, I would imagine. And, but yeah, so there's a Maryland case and a California case. And they've both, I believe, been sent back down to their district court levels where they're progressing at different speeds. I think the one in California is progressing quite quickly because that went to Judge Benitez, who has struck down a lot of California gun laws.
Right.
And already struck down the assault weapons ban under a reasoning that was pretty close to what the Bruen standard is.
Yeah.
So that case is probably going to move pretty fast.
Plus the Colorado cases that we've been covering in federal court, there've already been some temporary restraining orders issued against local assault weapons bans. And that's a federal court decision as well. So, obviously you can't predict 100% what this Delaware judge is going to do. There's always wild cards in legal cases, but the trends seem to indicate that things are moving against the legality of assault weapons bans in this post-Bruen landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. Those 2 Colorado cases were also by Democratic appointees. One was an Obama appointee, and another one was a Biden appointee. So that was actually kind of surprising because of that. It seems like perhaps the lower courts are going to be, from what's happened thus far, it does seem like the lower courts are going to be a lot more I don't know, faithful in applying the Supreme Court standard for gun cases moving forward. So there is very hard to justify an assault weapons ban, which the concept for this didn't occur until the mid 20th century, really the late 20th century. It's like the first one was in the 80s, I think.
Yeah, like 89.
California. Yeah. So, and you're talking about banning guns that are clearly in common use. They're the most popular rifle is the AR-15. There's 24 million of them out there. There's no coincidence that the National Shooting Sports Foundation put out that report at the time that it did earlier this year.
Right.
When the assault weapons ban was passed in the House. Their point is these are in common use for lawful purposes. There's one behind my head right now. Like, this is not a unusual and dangerous weapon as would be potentially allowed that the government would potentially be allowed to restrict under the Heller and Bruen standard. But so I think there's a good chance that eventually the law will get struck down. The problem is, of course, in the meantime, it's not going to happen overnight. These rulings are not going to come out overnight.